Welcome in, everybody. We've got week 14 weekly roundup, the last regular season week of the season. As you guys know, we combined week 14 and 15. Since the SFA, we're just going to get into it. So B-Dog finishes 7-5. Tennessee, they were up 31-0, and they almost choked it to Coach Green behind 3 Fields TDs, but they still managed to get to 10-2. Kansas got back on track. And this is game day. I recommend you go watch the the highlights. Just a brutal way to lose. We get an interception with like 2 minutes left, and then we get inside the 10, down 5, and we throw a pick. One of the worst picks I've ever seen in this game. And we are not undefeated anymore, so now we are at the mercy of the SFA gods as far as potentially maybe getting an auto bid, but just a brutal loss this week for ECU. Moving on, Michigan State blanks Maryland, keeps them out of a bowl. Buffalo rolls, and then Iowa State chokes the conference championship, unfortunately. And West Virginia now gets to bowl eligibility. Penn State gets bowl eligible. Baylor rolls. Arizona State won by 1 point over their rival, and if you look, it's because of a missed extra point. So Arizona State lucks out, still maintaining that top 8 ranking. Arizona State does get a bowl game. Ole Miss chokes against Mississippi State in the Egg Bowl. That one is a tough pill to swallow. Iowa surprisingly gets bowl eligible, beating Nebraska. Washington rolls. Oregon beats Oregon State in one of the most anticipated games of really the season in the Big Ten. It was all Northwestern early. They survived a late push from Illinois, and they will be in the Big Ten championship. Ohio State takes care of business. They're most likely in the playoff. Texas A&M keeps their playoff hopes alive with a 25-6 win. And Georgia Southern, who was talking all that mad shit all week about this game, got kind of smoked by Coastal Carolina as they are bowl eligible. San Diego State destroys Hawaii. Charlotte gets to bowl eligibility. Marshall loses, but they're still bowl eligible. UNLV gets some eligibility, and Nevada, who is 7-0 in conference play, just got blanked by Fresno State. Must have been resting the starters for this conference championship coming up next week. Rutgers gets a weird 10-7 victory. Army beats Chad Barber in overtime on a pick. Florida does take care of Florida State, and Coach Lama's playoff hopes are over. This was close in the first half. Second half, Florida just kind of pulled away. Vanderbilt continues to be impressive this season, 20-17 over Texas. And Auburn, a surprising win over Alabama. This, though, was the surprise of the week. Top 10 California got beat by 1 win. Boise State, what are they doing? Just a horrible way for them to get left out of the Pac-12 championship and the definitely the playoff now. Boston College, it's a little too late for them. New Mexico rolls. Rice roll. Kind of a surprising victory here for South Carolina over Clemson. North Carolina did beat Duke. Notre Dame loses. BYU, another big win, 52 points. And then Miami, 56-35. Surprisingly, not a scoregami. And then Toledo, they grab the division there. That was a tough game on BearCave. Houston is now in line for the G5 auto bid with ECU losing. And then finally, Utah took care of business against Colorado. But with Iowa State losing, Colorado now has a chance to make the playoff. If they can take out Baylor, of course. And then here's the Week 15 game. Nobody really saw it. I posted it. But Oklahoma State takes care of business over Oklahoma. I think this might be one of the first times in SFA history Oklahoma has finished under 500. So they are down bad over there. SFA player Sammy Coates got a touchdown. Alright, so let's move on here, and we are going to go through the players of the week for week 14. You just got to scroll backwards. Alright, so TCU, 3 sacks. They get on the board there. And Jalen Polk, 23 receptions, 348, and 4 tutties. A monster game for Washington. Mark Liu, SFA quarterback, and then 2 interceptions for Titus Robinson. Lucas Van Ness and Evan Pryor, he had 4 touchdowns. Teddy Bridgewater, 6 total TDs. Sean Gatsby, SFA player, sack and a forced fumble. Luke McCaffrey, 4 touchdowns. Pat White, 2 interceptions. Enzo Wood, SFA player, 2 interceptions. And Jacob Conover, 5 touchdowns and 500 yards. Logan Fife, another 5 TD, 400 plus yard day. We saw Jalen Polk. Carlos Del Rio Wilson, 6 total touchdowns. And then it was all Chanticleers here, forced fumbles and 2 tutties and 200 yards on the ground. And then for week 15, it was Quentin Stewart and it was Nicholas Martin for Oklahoma State. Alright, so now we're going to look at the end of the regular season stat leaders. You got Conover with almost 4,600 yards on the season. He has like a 400-yard lead on Braxton Miller, Marcus Davis. Those are 2 SFA players. Rushing yards, Ducker, McBurnfinger, and Sanders continue to be up there along with Porter and Godfrey. McBurnfinger is at number 3. Boozler and Evans are up there. Then you got McCormick, who's the SFA player at 3, 69 tackles, nice. Sacks, Lawrence didn't get any more this week, but SFA player Roderick Rook Chungong, 9.5 sacks for VT, that's awesome to see. Interceptions, another SFA player, Shutang Mungwa, 8 interceptions, he ties Deza Fernandez and Little. And then kicking leaders, ECU, we finally get some changes up here. ECU jumps up with a 54-yarder on game day. Alright, let's take a look now at the Heisman watch. So you got McBurnfinger still up there. Marcus Davis in second. Cam Porter. Mark Liu is new to the list. He is the Miami quarterback. He's 36-5, and he has 6 touchdowns and 700 yards. That's a great stat line. Somehow Bo Wallace is still up here after choking the game away. But 4 out of 5 SFA players on this list. That's awesome to see. No matter what way it shakes out, it's going to be a fun time. We will know who wins the Heisman after conference championships. Going down to toughest places to play. Let's check in on those winning streaks. UCLA's now dropped 10 in a row at home. App State, Indiana, Ball State, Purdue, USF, Ohio, and UTEP are now over a season long. And on the flip side, Tennessee has the longest home win streak in the country, followed by MTSU, who just expanded it by 1 more game this week. Luckily, I was lost on the road, so I still have a great home field advantage. Northwestern, Florida, Texas A&M, and Michigan State. As you can see, there is, if you win at home, you're going to be really well off. So just get it done in front of the home crowd, boys. That's all for all of that sort of a stuff. I'm actually, before we go through rankings and everything, we're going to go through the injury report. This week, there's really nothing crazy to see. There was one injury, though, I do need to touch on, and it was for BYU. Yep, we've already talked about it multiple times today. The leading passer in the nation, Jacob Conover, after 500 yards and 5 TDs this week, he ended up breaking his wrist. He's out. Still a ridiculous stat line. I don't know how he's not up in the Heisman contention. Maybe because he's a Mormon. But nevertheless, fantastic season. I mean, last year he had an okay year, but raised touchdowns, lowered interceptions, and he even added a little bit on the ground. You can't ask for much more. Hopefully he comes back for another season. Would be definitely exciting to see if he could break touchdown records or something like that. But still a fantastic year for Jacob. All right, so we're at the end of the regular season now, and here we are. This is the second to last college football playoff poll. So don't pay attention to the last week rankings, because when you sim from 14 to 15 to conference championships, it's always a little wonky. I'm going to go over each of the conference championships after I go through the rankings. So Baylor stays at 1, Michigan State, Ohio State. This has been kind of the fold for the last, 4 or 5 weeks. ECU is not here anymore because they lost, so Florida jumps up. We actually had Houston now because they're the top G5. They're in line for the auto bid. They hop Arizona State. Arizona State does stay here, even though they did have the tight win. Northwestern ended up jumping a little bit. We were really impressed with that Illinois victory. And this is where they see ECU dropping. They had chances at a win inside the 10. One loss on the season. But then you have Tennessee here. Then Utah jumps up to 10. Then we have Miami. Georgia is still the top ranked 3-loss team. That's not changing. Middle Tennessee State jumps all the way up to 13 from 19. Boston College moving up. Washington moving up. Colorado moved up a little bit, even in a loss. Actually, I think they dropped one ultimately. Minnesota getting a bit of a boost here, 4 losses, but 3 of those losses are to teams 1, 2, and 3 in the rankings. So the strength of schedule's off the charts there. Illinois is right behind them. Cal, this is where they fall all the way to 19. Texas A&M can still make the playoff. Florida State, we're also still impressed with them. Then we have Toledo, the top 2-loss G5 team. We have Ole Miss here with 4 losses. New Mexico, and then Buffalo sneaking in here into the rankings. So those are the last rankings before we see conference championships, which will be on Wednesday. And here are the conference championships. We will go through them one by one here. First up, Buffalo at Toledo. Buffalo's first MAC championship appearance in the SFA. They only lead in pass offense and turnover differential. Toledo has a crazy offense, but Pinstripe has been cooking this season. You got a rematch here of last year's Big 12 championship, where Baylor kind of just destroyed Colorado. We'll see if they can, you prepare for a whole year. Hopefully they can get a different result. Colorado, this is actually the number 1 and 2 scoring offenses in the country. So that's going to be a shootout for sure. The Pac-12 championship will be Arizona State and Washington, a rematch of last year. Washington, though, much different situation than last year. They lost this game and still made the playoff. This year, it's all or nothing. They weren't even supposed to be here. It was supposed to be Cal. They lucked out, and here they are. Probably the surprise of the Power 5, Northwestern. Number 7 in the country, in line for a playoff berth. How ridiculous is that? But you got to go through McBurnfinger and Michigan State. That is not going to be an easy task. So this one is definitely going to be a fun one to watch. Troy at Georgia Southern. Georgia Southern was highly ranked, but they lost. So not really sure what to expect from this game. I don't really expect anything close. I just expect a Georgia Southern kind of, 20-14 or 28-10 kind of a victory. Boring in terms of holding the losing team, Troy, to because they have a great defense, but also that offense isn't necessarily all that great. This is where it does get interesting, though, because you got Memphis, who was undefeated last year. They're led by Case McCoy, the SFA quarterback, the senior redshirt. They can knock out Houston, so the exact opposite situation of last year for them. They were winning in. This year, though, they can play spoiler to a rival. Both these teams can still make the playoff. Obviously, Florida's the heavy favorite here, but Texas A&M has been surviving. Once again, a very, very lopsided in terms of rankings. And if Houston does stumble, Mid-Tennessee State could now get the auto bid. They have to take care of Army. This is definitely no easy feat. The number 1 rushing offense in the country. But Flipper Masters, there's just something about that guy, man, and that team. They are something special this year. The Mountain West, you got Nevada, who seemed really, really good up until last week, against New Mexico, who also seems really, really good. This one, you don't really know what to expect because New Mexico last year didn't score a point in this game, I believe. So definitely going to be a weird game. Now, this is the game that controls pretty much how easy or how hard the committee's choices are. Florida State beats Miami. It opens up an additional at-large spot, and then it probably becomes pretty easy. There's only about 8 or 9 teams that that you really think should make the playoff. So if Florida State is able to gatekeep Miami, then it becomes a lot easier for the committee. If Miami wins, it doesn't necessarily take an auto bid, but it leaves you know, an Ohio State, an ECU, or a Tennessee out. So this is definitely the one to watch. If you are on the bubble like myself, you are a big Coach Llama fan this week. There are so many scenarios. By how conference championships work, if you haven't been here before, is all of these are on BearCave, and then we have game day. So game day, we will be going to Buffalo and Toledo. It was the server vote. In second was Colorado at Baylor, but I think this season is probably a good one to watch a G5 championship if you're going to, especially get to see Pinstripe success, but also Brett Huntley, as he is a really, really valued member of this project of the SFA. So, you know, massive lore behind Toledo. So this will be a good game. But yeah, so that's gonna wrap up weekly roundup. I might do one for. I'm definitely not gonna do one for bowls or anything like that. I might, but maybe I'll do one for conference championships. We will see. Actually, I will, because we'll have awards and stuff. So look out for that. But as always, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.